Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Welcome back to the show. We are joined by Grant Venerable here, our doctor, our chemist, our author, our amazing friend and foe who has done so much to help out so many through all his years of work. And I'll let him say hello and introduce himself. Hi, Grant.
Hi, Jill.
Hi, Grant.
Hello, can you hear me, Jill?
I hear you, sweetheart. Good to see you.
Okay, it's good to see you. It's quite a time here in the upper desert of Yucca Valley, right next to the Joshua Tree National Monument. It's such beauty here. I've watched the full moon last night. Well, it's just a day after the full moon or so. And then I also saw it in the morning after the sun had risen, and it was by that time setting in the west. It was setting over Mount San Gorgonio, which is the biggest, humongous mountain in Southern California. It's about 11,500 feet, so it's almost as tall as the biggest Sierra Nevadas and the Rocky Mountains. Everything is the same, except different. This is 2025, and the arrangement of the solar system, the stars, the planets are much in the same configuration as they were 10,000 years ago, or even 100,000 years ago. And that's what's important to keep in mind these days.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, modern age people get caught in something of a time warp. And so it's not a real reality that we're perceiving, but nonetheless, things distract us. And they come about because people 10,000 years ago did not have social media, at least not electronically. The social media adds a level of something you don't have when you don't have social media. And but the media can be very distracting.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You wonder, why is this happening? Or why is that happening? Or why is that not happening? Well, the answer is because we're not framing it properly.
Yep.
What we're getting is what we're supposed to be getting. It's what we're supposed to be seeing. And so it's important to keep recalibrating what we see coming over our TV screens, our cinema screens, so that we get the right perspective. I'm thinking, this morning I got up with the what to talk about, and I think always go back to the beginning of things. And there can be many beginnings, but I think we can start our beginning as we have a little bit in the past, but I'm coming back to it today. And that's a beginning that's about 10,000 years ago.
Okay.
And that beginning, everything was framed around the wise people, the wise men. That's such a meme of that day. And there were a few wise women, but most of them were wise men. And they had a common name called the Abba.
Oh.
Or the ABBA.
Okay.
Abba is the desert father.
Okay.
And there was always a few people in each roving tribe in the deserts of what we would call Palestine and Judea today. And that's where I'm starting my story today. And that story keeps happening and happening. But the desert fathers live. They have tents. They're nomads. They carry their tents with them. They carry food. They carry water. They have camels. and they rove about the territory. There'd be various tribes of them. But on the whole, the desert is a beautiful, sacred
Mm-hmm.
seeming place.
Yeah.
And it's so beautiful, it it's attractive to the
Mm-hmm.
Abbas, the
Yeah.
wise, the desert fathers to talk about. But the other quality is quiet, peace.
Mm-hmm.
These people live in such peace until there's storms, and then there's peace again. And the peace is such that without distraction, things will come up in their mind, usually their subconscious mind. And they came to call that the still small voice. And the still small voice keeps talking to them. They move to another cave or something. They're there long enough, and there's a still small voice. And that small voice gives them information that they would not otherwise have.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the crux
Okay.
of everything I really have to talk about, because it's taken me years to recognize that same still small voice. That same voice is still there, that had been there 10,000 years ago, was there
Wow.
100,000 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
a quarter of a million years ago, 2 million years ago. But as people communicated with each other and developed language and written language, they began to write down the voices, what the voices were speaking from their still small voice.
Yeah.
They didn't know what the
Mm-hmm.
voices meant. They had to pass it along over generations
Mm-hmm.
for other Abbas to come together and talk about and ascertain, what is this saying? What does it mean? Well, the languages they were developing most of those days and 10,000 years ago were the
Mm-hmm.
beginnings, the rudiments of Semitic languages. That's
Of
such a
course.
popular word these days,
It is,
particularly when
right?
it's accompanied by anti-Semitic.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to look at the Semitic first before we can even make sense
Yeah.
of anything that carries the weight of anti-Semitic, because there were several Semitic tribal peoples, and they converged on peoples that are descendants of those people today. There are Arabs, there are other peoples in the Middle East, there were people who became Jewish, and these languages had very great similarities. And as they wrote them down, they had kind of a paper
Mm-hmm.
that we would call papyrus. And they would put down their thoughts, the still
Oh.
small voice. And it always had to do with their creator or something they wanted to call their creator. They didn't know what to call it, but
Mm-hmm.
they seemed to be saying things that were relevant to who they were
Okay.
as people or
Wow.
a people. And that's where it all started. It's where the whole field of scholarship started, the whole field of
Yeah.
education. It developed its own rules, which were sacrosanct rules
Mm-hmm.
about how to live and how to talk about what the still small voices are saying.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, people, we live in modern homes and houses and apartments and hotels, and we get away from the still small voice. And when we do that, we get away from the meaning of the still small voices.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm going to sock it to everybody
All
that
right.
those still small voices were the beginnings. Education. Education, we have
Mm-hmm.
forgotten, is the most sacred activity that human beings
Wow.
can do. Now,
Yeah.
there's sub activities. We could say the medical profession is an important activity, and it is.
Yeah.
But education was there before
Mm-hmm.
medical.
Sure was.
Whatever was going on, education preceded it. We wouldn't even have religion today without education. So that's where I've been getting close to the meaning of the Talmud. The Talmud is the central piece of this. Well, kids who grow up in Jewish culture have a they have a little advantage in this because good middle class families send them to Hebrew school when they're children, when they're preteens, and they go through bar mitzvah
Mm-hmm.
and now it's bat mitzvah processes, but they learn the culture. They learn not just the language, but the meanings is filtered through the thoughts of these abbas way, way, way back there. So let's bring it closer to home.
Okay.
The the Dead Sea Scrolls are central to this.
Okay.
And the first Dead Sea scrolls had to be, oh, maybe they were discovered around 2,000 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
They were often discovered in caves on this papyrus, sometimes in earthenware jars. And when modern scholars, starting maybe around AD 1, I won't, AD means the same as CE. AD means year of our Lord. But as we've universalized our understandings, it's now CE. It means the common era.
Okay.
And the common era involved a lot more religions than just Christianity. So it involves the entire panoply of Judeo-Christianity and Islam and other religions in
Mm-hmm.
that part of the world. The these were these papyri were interpreted and the Abbas talked about it and they began to organize them into scriptures. And the earliest scriptures were the Torah in Judaism
Mm-hmm.
became the Old Testament in the Christian Bible. But they very much say similar things. They're looking at the same original texts. Then came along in the 1940s other Dead Sea Scrolls that were more the unknown, less known
Mm-hmm.
scriptures that gave us what were the Book of Thomas, which was completely mind blowing because
Yeah.
it was so paradoxical
Of
in its
course.
and we've heard about doubting Thomas
Mm-hmm.
in Sunday school classes. But doubting Thomas is the Thomas that's being referred to. And I guess that's the best word they could use because he was a master of dualism. The almost unintelligible messages in dualism. So dualism in those days had to do with positive and negative opposites of concepts like good and evil, dark and light, God and Satan. And modern scholars like the I'll think of her name in a moment, Elaine Pagels. Now, Elaine Pagels is about the same age group I am. We were born in the
Okay.
same generation in the early 1940s. She came along in a good upper middle class family in Northern California called Palo Alto. So her parents were associated with the Stanford University culture. University,
Yeah.
again, academics, higher
Mm-hmm.
education. And then but they did not adhere to an organized faith,
Mm-hmm.
and because her parents did not believe that way. But she had close girlfriends from high school. They invited her to church with them on Sundays, her to go to church, and these were the more literalist Christian churches of that day. And so Paggles enjoyed the social
Yeah.
fellowship, but she didn't much take to the religious beliefs per se, but it was good. But what it did, seemingly, was to stimulate her interest in religious history and comparative religion. So off she went to college at, where did she go? Harvard, one of
Wow.
those places, and got her degree, but she wound up with a PhD in religious
Beautiful.
studies by studying the first of the Dead Sea Scrolls they discovered in the 1940s. She was privileged to have a professor who was influential enough to make them available to her. So she wrote a whole series of books on God, on Jesus, on
Okay.
Satan, on
Oh,
what does all of this mean. And so that's where that came on. But back to where I come in, I was in Los Angeles we were a good Methodist church family. So that was my early religious exposure, which changed as my father and mother discovered other faith traditions. And one of those was a tradition that didn't become known until the 1800s. And that's called New Thought, sometimes called Science of Mind. But it's based on scripture, but a more psychological approach that looked at each character in the scriptures as an aspect of human psychology, which put a whole new take on biblical understanding. So from that, I gravitated in graduate school to the Unitarian Universalist Church, a very small but very influential denomination. And people didn't necessarily believe literally in God,
yeah.
but they had many beliefs and they had a very social justice outlook. But I also gravitated into the Congregational Church, the United Church of Christ, and then ultimately the Episcopal Church. And I love the Episcopal rituals
Yeah.
and the music. And then the Latter-day Saints Church brought it all together. So now that's where I'm speaking from, is from that larger unified understanding. Uh, Going back to the Talmud, the Talmud was a centerpiece of education in uh, Jewish culture, Talmudic culture. It set down the principles of daily life,
Mm-hmm.
and and so you wouldn't go against the Talmud except out of fear of risking your well-being, that you could offend some of the divine characters in the scriptures. So you didn't want to do that. So we developed traditions in European culture, also African culture, other cultures around the world. You want to keep sacred what the desert fathers have taught you is sacred. We've kind of lost that today. People going around doing things you shouldn't be doing, like stealing or injuring fellow human beings. And because I think people have lost the sense, well, there could be consequences if I defile the scriptural knowledge. Uh, the wondrous thing I really want to emphasize is how the Talmud not only laid the groundwork for future religious understanding by the rabbis, the rabbinical tradition, it also laid the groundwork for knowledge, analysis, and understanding. And that laid the groundwork for a tradition of how to do advanced reasoning, the logics, the rational disciplines, the relativity in disciplines of thoughts. Well, it's probably sometime after during the Renaissance when things were shifting and the tradition of the Talmud got involved with setting up the basis of modern science. Now, not all of the rabbis were in full appreciation of that because they wanted their Talmudic tradition to stay with Judaism and religious intentions. But it took off. The Talmud took off, and that became, I'll just call it the primary religion
Mm-hmm.
of the elite intellectuals of Europe, and then the United Kingdom, and then the United States and North America. And that's what I was trained in is the discipline of the Talmud in the science of chemistry. Nobody ever talks about that.
Yeah.
Scientists tend not to be particularly interested in how their methods of thinking would relate to religion or social science or
Mm-hmm.
humanities. But I was a little kid that had an interest in seeing analogies and say, wait a minute, this principle of chemistry, chemical reactions, that has a lot to do with humans creating different processes in the social sciences or organizations or business. Why not directly apply Le Chatelier's principle of chemical reactions and chemical equilibrium to the development of a business organization or the development of a microprocessor? Now, it took me more years than what just a few words can really describe, but that's the bedrock of my memoir.
Aw.
And I'm realizing now, hey, I did something special and I'm not really broadcasting that like I should.
Yeah.
So now I'm cleaning that up. And I had that tendency while I was in graduate school at the University of Chicago. But it started at UCLA, University of California, Los Angeles. It started with my father's undergraduate work at the University of Southern California,
Mm-hmm.
is studying pre-medicine until he realized he fainted at the sight of blood.
Yeah.
And so he said, no, I'm going to go on to what I really want, which is mathematics and engineering. And that's what he studied at UCLA in the 1920s, and then UC Berkeley in 1925, till that magic moment when somehow he upset the chair of the math department at UCLA,
Mm-hmm.
who said, it's 1927 and you're supposed to graduate in 2 months, but I'm not going to let you graduate because you did not follow all of our sacred laws, our rules of getting a degree. So I'll just leave it at that. So he dropped a course, which is no big deal today. You simply get proper permission and you drop it if your counselor agrees. But that very unpleasant, unhappy episode wound up making him define for himself what was really important to him in the field of education and why not go for that, and where could he go to do that? What's the best school in California that he could go to? And he said, I think I will go to Caltech. And Caltech is over there in Pasadena. Now, do you have any questions coming up right now?
I can, but you're actually frozen right now. I'm not sure why, but in Pasadena, you were there for how long?
Yeah.
Grant,
Where were
see me? Hello, hello. There you go. Perfect. Wait, you were in Pasadena. You were teaching there for how
Oh,
long?
I'm sorry. I got ahead of myself. My father went to Pasadena when he got into Caltech. I didn't study in Pasadena. I studied at UCLA, which he did before I did. But they had one of the best mathematics departments in California. Are you with me so far?
Yes, perfect. Yep.
So once he
Read this.
was invited to
Here.
leave
Here.
UCLA, to his great disappointment,
Oh, okay. Okay.
that was the little point.
Got it. Okay. I'm sorry. I
He
lost
said,
track, but
I've
okay.
got to straighten up and fly right here.
Yeah.
I've
Wow.
got to play it straight. Even if I think I'm right, I have to play it straight because I don't run the society. Somebody else does. And I've got to go by their rules as long as I'm not running it. So he went over there, picked up an admissions application. It was only 15 miles from his home in Los Angeles, near the USC campus.
Got it.
And they gave him an admission exam. Now, that's what schools did before we had SATs
Yeah.
and
Admissions
all of
exams.
that.
Yep.
They wrote their own exams.
Oh my
And
goodness.
Caltech was one of the best
That was at
schools to go
Caltech, the
to
one. Yep. Mm-hmm.
in mathematics, science, and engineering. So they wrote, one of the best exams in math that you could get. We had already studied 4 years in a math major, so he should have known a little math at least. Well, he creamed the exam because he was good already. But Caltech said, you are so good on the math test, even if you didn't do as well on the physics, we're going to admit you anyway.
Yep.
So that's how he got in. He only had to study 3 years there to get his degree in engineering, but he wanted to specialize in civil engineering, designing freeway interchanges, designing dams, canals, doing mining engineering.
Wow.
He didn't get a chance to do much of that because he graduated in the Depression. And
Mm.
he had to, like many of his classmates, invent their own jobs and professions. So that's what happened. And he was able to support us youngsters when he bought a company that made felt blackboard erasers and supported us like that. Now getting back to really the nub
Yep.
of what I'm saying. Now, how do we reconcile my father's history and the history of education, period, the role of the Abbas in the desert, and the development of the scriptures, and that education was the first discipline ever performed by human beings that developed its own sacred rules? Given that, what does all of this mean? And that's what I really want to get into, Jill, with you and our esteemed audience.
Tell us. Tell us.
And
Aw.
now we're seeing it reflected in how the government is operating. The government in the United States and Europe, United Kingdom, Canada, Africa, all over the world, because they already knew the first discipline was education. It's not something they want to mess with because its methods are so technical that you can't just make changes because you might be a congressman, you might be a judge, you might be a governor or a president, for heaven's sake. And you might want to see, oh, I want to make a change. Or I might want to defund some field and I want to fund another field. Now that's what's sounding familiar now. How did it get that way?
Yeah.
Because people forgot education has its own, I'm going to go out on a limb, but it's not really. It has its own rules formulated by the gods of those fields. It's just like the acting profession has its own rules and its own gods. And you don't ever want to defile the gods of anybody's field because there could be unfortunate consequences for yourself if you do that. But the good news is, if you harmonize yourself with the understandings of those fields and their principles, their laws, you can live life so much better and you can avoid a lot of the problems we're having right now. And all we have to do is get back to where the way we're supposed to live. Now that's a pretty bold thing to say, but I
Yeah.
stand by it with a question, which just came to me in the last week since we talked before.
Mm.
I think I mentioned this, so, and the question is, do you trust life? I
Yeah.
ask that question to everyone who's
Yeah.
listening to the sound of my voice. Do you trust life?
I do. I
Something came
do.
up that made me ask that question to myself
Uh-huh.
a week ago, when my brother sat me down and said, when our sister and I urged you to join us in a family venture in Southern California in the desert again, where sacred things get heard in quiet places, in the desert, and you agreed to join us for the projects we had in mind
Mm-hmm.
in education to develop a retreat site here by the Joshua Tree National Monument,
Mm-hmm.
where the night sky is the blackest that you can get anywhere in this nation. You can see every star in the Milky Way. All you have to do is stare at the sky at least 15 seconds. And when that your eyes adapt to the dark at that certain place,
Mm-hmm.
stars seem to jump out at you out of the sky. They look like a little mist first, but then the mist starts to condense into little white dots that start leaping out and just sit there in these beautiful constellations. And that's what the ancients dealt with, the Abbas dealt with. And it was so stimulating, so dramatic. It gave them thoughts about, well, what created this place where we stand and are
Mm-hmm.
looking at the sky? What makes things happen? Who created us? Did someone create us?
Yeah.
All of those questions came up, just as when I said to my brother, um, I said, yes, readily, without reservation, I will come out. I will sell my possessions
Mm-hmm.
in Georgia and drive to California and join you out there. And the reason I realize that is I trust life.
Yeah.
I trust life when life seems to be showing different circumstances, unifying and agreeing with one another. And the circumstances were telling me, well, it looks like a good time to leave Georgia after being here for 26 years and learning things I didn't learn before, particularly about the Civil War. And the Civil War was maybe the most important thing that happened in America way back in the middle 1800s. And it was over important issues that were directly impacted every citizen of this nation. And it still hasn't really reached a conclusion. And I think I was one of those people who was supposed to reach insights, look into my own ancestry, the people who taught me survival tools, tools how to develop information and live a better life. That's why I trust life. I look at what I've journalized in keeping notes
Mm-hmm.
about the important events in my life. And that meant all events, not only joyful events I was hoping for,
Yeah.
but disappointing events.
Yeah.
But how did I deal with the disappointments? That's what was important for me, to trust life, because it's as though life has brought me the solutions to the unhappy events that
Mm-hmm.
occur in all of our lives on planet Earth. Now, kind of ease up there for a moment and let that sink in, because I'm realizing how very important that is, to come to a point where you can actually recognize there were people in your life,
Mm-hmm.
some you loved, some you didn't like, and they all made a contribution because you allowed them to teach you what they had to teach you about living your life better, not repeating
So
mistakes,
true. The same. Mm-hmm.
but
Which,
building tools that help you to master those things that you want to master.
yeah.
Now, I get news, I get letters from the government. Oh, Social Security might be discontinued.
I know. What's going on with that? It better not be.
And I said, oh my goodness, we can't have that. But, um, and then I realized, no, I trust life. So the point was, well, what if Social Security is stopped for me? There's other things I'm going to be able to do. That's the whole point.
And you continue to do and
And
continue
I
to
continue. I
continue.
could I continue.
I
Yeah.
know.
So the
Oh.
desert remains beautiful. It's going to be 111 degrees today, Fahrenheit.
Whoa. Are you serious?
I'm serious.
Wow.
But and it cools down to 97 at night, maybe 95 if I'm lucky.
Okay.
But um, I jump in the pool around 5 p.m. when it's about
Mm-hmm.
106 degrees,
Oh my
and
goodness.
it's just like Palm Springs.
Okay.
Palm Springs is just on south of the mountains that I live next to in 29 Palms. But Palm
That,
Springs is about sea level,
okay.
and it gets the hottest at sea
Okay.
level. So if it's 111 here, it'll be 115 in Palm Springs
Wow.
or 120.
Unbelievable.
But
Un
that's what's going on. This just 140 miles away at Santa Monica Beach. It's like 70 degrees
mm-hmm.
by the ocean. So you have all those different subclimates here in Southern California.
Yeah. Well,
So,
so what do? Do you stay indoors most of the time, or where do you go out in that weather? I'm just trying to imagine this because I'm not used to that type of weather.
well, the swimming pool is very nice.
Okay.
I think it's probably about 78 degrees Fahrenheit, but that still feels quite cold if
Mm-hmm.
the air temperature is 30 degrees higher than that. And it takes me a few minutes to get used to the water, and then it's fun. It feels very pleasant. But when I get out and my skin starts to dry off, I realize, oh, it's hot out here. I can
Right.
feel the heat. So I sit under an umbrella over one of the tables around the pool, and I enjoy myself. I think about what I'm going to say at your next podcast.
I love it. Well, thank you. We still got plenty more time to talk. If you are just tuning in, we got to remind you you're here with your friend and our professional of the year, Grant Venerable, who is, a man of many, wears many hats, right? As a doctor, do I call you a
Thank you.
physicist? You are an author. You continue to do so much, and you've helped with so much different research. You've helped with so many different people. And I mean, the stuff you've discovered and proven, I mean, I'm shocked. There's so many things that, we've talked about in the beginning. You
Well,
discovered all these different things back in the day, right? Like, ah.
really, yeah. I studied with the people, many of whom developed the atomic bomb on the Manhattan Project.
Wow.
And that was centered at the
Wow.
University of Chicago. It was
Mm-hmm.
also centered at Columbia University. It also had a center out in New Mexico where the the bomb was actually built.
Oh my.
The news media gave
Wow.
acknowledgments to the tragic dropping of that
Yeah.
bomb on Japan, on Hiroshima and Nagasaki.
Wow.
Some of the scientists who developed that fission, nuclear fission process, nearly went crazy about it because they were focused intellectually, hoping to help America win the war, World War II. The fear was that the Nazis and the Hitler regime
Mm.
were close to developing that bomb before anybody else. And it was many of those same scientists who either fled from or were expelled from Germany who warned the uh, government of the United States. One of those was Albert Einstein. They all had a dreadful fear
Mm-hmm.
of the evil of the Nazi regime
Oh.
and what, if it won, what it could do to the world to eliminate democracy from then on.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so we have been able to put that nuclear energy to peaceful uses. And that's how I got my PhD degree, was working on a dissertation project that had peaceful possibilities to it.
Mm-hmm.
And and everybody uses today some aspect of that technology that was developed by chemists and physicists. I mean, we take for granted looking at buildings and we see the bright lights on buildings and we see pictures, animations, we see words on like the buildings behind you on that beautiful photo of New York City. But the technology for doing that was under development when I
Yeah.
was in graduate school
Yeah.
in the 1960s. One of my buddies from UCLA was one of the main developers of that LED called, that's what it was called, LED,
Okay.
light emitting diode
Oh, wow.
technology uh, to do that. But I was also working on related applications. I was working on technology developed at the Argonne National Laboratory to observe
Wow.
chemical reactions initiated by high energy radiation, like electron radiation. Just take a beam of electrons
Mm-hmm.
and uh, energize them, activate them up to like several million electron volts of energy. And that'll make them go as fast as the speed of light almost. And
Mm-hmm.
those things hit into a solution, a cell filled full of water that has metal complexes dissolved in it. And all those high energy photons break the water molecules into many parts. And one of them is called the hydrated electron, which is the most powerful reducing agent in the whole chemical field. But it is so powerful and reactive. It only lasts for a few microseconds, meaning a few millionths of a second before it reacts with something. And what it was reacting with in my work were these cobalt cyanide complexes to see what would happen, what kind of new compounds would be produced. So that's where
Mhm.
2, 3 years worth of work went to, was finding just one or two of those complexes and writing a whole dissertation about it. But in the process, I'm absorbing the knowledge of all of these brilliant scientists who were my professors. Many of them, some of them were Nobel Prize winners. Some of them got Nobel Prizes later. But that to say that they were working at the top levels of the scientific profession that started with those desert fathers
Mhm.
and the development of the Talmud, which is how do you ask the right questions?
True.
Not just in science, but in life. Like now I'm learning how to ask the question, do you trust life? 10 ways to ask, do you trust life?
Mhm.
So some people believe in luck. Some people believe in bad luck. Some people believe in Murphy's Law as leading to bad luck. But it's the living of life that really determines those things. Luck really is an illusion. It's how skilled are you in developing how to manage this life force that we're entrusted with for our allotted time on
Mhm.
earth.
Mm. And life is so precious. And, you mentioned life on earth. And, do you mind if I ask a question? Because I know with all your experience and knowledge about life, right? When we
Right.
go, can I just ask your opinion? What do you think happens to our souls? Where do we end up?
Oh, that's something I started to reflect on as an 8-year-old boy because I had to wonder, where did my mother go
Yeah.
when she passed out of her body?
Uh,
And it baffled me for years of contemplation. It made me even talk to God in a very,
mm-hmm.
I had a certain vision of God that I had
Yeah.
acquired from my mother and my father. I did not believe that God was an evil presence that would
Mm-hmm.
allow bad things to happen to my mother. So there had to be some other explanation. And I began to ask God directly, okay, if you're there, tell me what's going on here. It took me about, I think, maybe 30 years
Ah,
to really find a reasonable answer.
yeah.
And even that is still going, that process is still going. I
Mm-hmm.
think now, if you were to ask me for my most sincere answer, is that we continue in the same, not maybe the same form, but
Mm-hmm.
we continue with our same thoughts.
Yeah.
And if we have fears in this life, we have to resolve them so they
Mm-hmm.
don't plague us in the next.
Yeah.
If there's a next, and I think there is a next, I'll just put it like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if I want that next to be as successful and happy as possible, I have to make sure I do that now while I'm occupying this physical mortal form.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. Just curious. I believe it too. I believe the soul goes on, but just a question I always have, right? Because it's just the unknown. And I get to talk to a lot of psychics and empaths, and I just feel, my mother's presence a lot and those that have passed. So
Yes.
I really do. But it's this exciting new territory that really no one here on
Well,
Earth really knows. It's one of those things we can't figure out as a scientist, a chemist, a physicist, It's just ah,
I'm going to let you in on a secret that I
oh,
have.
go go.
You just said the word believe. That's what I believe.
Uh-huh.
That's the secret. If you believe as if whatever it is exists, whether it's a good Lord or something else,
Mm-hmm.
if you fully believe and have faith as if it's true.
Mm-hmm.
And it shows up that way in your life as true. And that's why I like the question, do I trust life so much? Because then the follow-up question then is, how much do you trust life? And
Mm-hmm.
if you trust it enough so that whatever it is you're trusting, it's as if it's already true and will always be true. And
Yeah.
it's in that as ifness
Yeah.
that the existence occurs. There's nothing magic about it. You live as if life is a happy place. It will be, but not at all times. All moments will be different.
Mm-hmm.
But if that as ifness is there, you're gonna you have a pretty good batting average. I'll just put it like that.
Got it.
And since I've been in this desert, I've had so many beautiful moments just looking out over the desert, feeling I'm communicating with these desert fathers the way the ancestors did and wrote the Torah and the other scriptures.
Beautiful. Wow. All right. Well, I always appreciate our conversations and us getting together. And insight for today, how did you want to leave off with your audience?
I want to leave a lot of the Abba's wisdom, I'll dare say, is in my memoir. And don't ask me how it got there. I'll just say it's from the experiences of my life. And that memoir is Footprints in the Chaotic Unknown.
Yes.
I didn't get the title until I was almost done with the whole manuscript of 12 volumes. I mean, 12, I don't know however many, it was 4 volumes
Yeah.
because it had a different title at the start.
Yeah.
But as I got closer to now, I realized how chaotic experience has become in everybody's lives. So I said, well, I'll just talk about the footprints I've made and the footprints that others have made that have led me to higher knowledge. And I tried to capture them
Mm.
in words
Yeah.
as best I could.
Beautiful. Well, we appreciate your time here always. And tell us how we can reach out to you.
Well, I think the website is probably the best of, I think it's Grant D. Venerable, all lower caps. Grant D. Venerable, PhD. If it's not Grant D, it's just Grant Venerable, PhD.com. And contact information is in there as a whole lot of events and things that I've done in my life.
Aw, beautiful.
But thank you for asking.
Well, thank you for being here and joining us and enjoying all of our listeners. I hope you're enjoying this conversation. An amazing insight with such a professional. And again, we commend you on being our professional of the year. Grant Venerable, thank you for your time today.
Well,
And
thank you.
I can't wait to
Thank
hear
you,
more
Jill.
next week. Thank you again. Enjoy the rest of
Thank
your
you.
day and stay cool
Thank,
best you can.
okay.
Bye.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.